When you hear the name Mike Tyson, your mind instantly flashes to images of raw power, lightning-fast punches, and a presence in the ring so ferocious it felt almost otherworldly. Tyson wasn't just another heavyweight, he was a storm in human form, a once-in-a-lifetime figure who changed the face of boxing forever. His life reads like a wild novel filled with triumph, tragedy, controversy, and unforgettable moments. In this countdown, we're diving deep into 10 mind-blowing facts about Iron Mike that reveal just how extraordinary and unpredictable his journey really was. So let's step into the ring and start swinging with the first jaw-dropping truth. 10. Youngest heavyweight champion in history. Imagine being only 20 years old. Most kids are still figuring out college, working their first job, or barely getting by with cheap ramen noodles in a cramped apartment. But at that exact age, Mike Tyson was busy becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing. That fact alone is enough to stop you in your tracks. The historic moment came on November 22, 1986. Tyson faced Trevor Berbick for the WBC heavyweight title. Berbick was no pushover. He had actually beaten the legendary Muhammad Ali in Ali Hiyasu's final fight just a few years earlier. But when Tyson stepped into the ring, it was like watching a tank against a man on foot. His aggression was terrifying, his punches explosive, and his defense airtight. Tyson dismantled Berbick in just 2 rounds. The knockout was so decisive that it looked like something straight out of a Hollywood fight montage. Berbick was hit so hard he staggered around the ring, trying to stand but collapsing again and again. The referee had no choice but to stop the fight. In that instant, Tyson etched his name into the record books forever. To really understand the scale of this achievement, think about the heavyweight division. This isn't a weight class where teenagers dominate. Heavyweights are usually seasoned men, physically mature and often in their late 20s or 30s. To come in at 20 with barely a handful of years of professional experience and crush established champions, it was unheard of. But Tyson wasn't just winning. He was winning in a way that shocked the world. His style was raw and brutal. Unlike Muhammad Ali, who danced and jabbed, or George Foreman, who relied on sheer size, Tyson blended speed and power like no one had before. He moved his head constantly, bobbing and weaving in a peekaboo style taught by his mentor Cus D'Amato. Then, out of nowhere, he'd explode with uppercuts and hooks that ended fights in seconds. The youngest champion title didn't just give Tyson a belt, it launched a global phenomenon. America suddenly had a heavyweight who felt invincible. Newspapers called him the baddest man on the planet. Fans tuned in just to see how fast he'd destroy his opponent. His fights were less like contests and more like public executions, broadcast on primetime TV. For young athletes across the country, Tyson's win was proof that age didn't have to limit greatness. He embodied the dream that someone from nothing, a kid from Brooklyn with a troubled childhood, could rise up and conquer the world stage before even turning 21. That night in Las Vegas wasn't just a victory, it was the birth of a legend. And for Trevor Berbick, it was the unfortunate honor of being the man who helped cement Tyson's place in history. Number 9. A childhood straight out of a movie. Before Tyson was terrifying opponents in the ring, he was just a small kid from Brooklyn, and his childhood could have been ripped straight out of a gritty American drama. Born in 1966 in the tough neighborhood of Brownsville, New York, Mike grew up surrounded by poverty, crime, and constant danger. His father abandoned the family early, leaving his mother to raise Mike and his siblings alone. The streets became both his playground and his battlefield. By the age of 11, Tyson had already been arrested for petty crimes like pickpocketing and fighting. He was a shy, chubby kid with a lisp, often bullied by older kids. But here's the twist. Those who picked on him quickly learned it was a mistake. Tyson discovered early on that he had a natural gift for fighting. If someone stole his pigeon, yes, pigeons, because Tyson had a passion for raising them even as a boy, he would unleash fists of fury that shocked everyone. By 13, he had been arrested almost 40 times. Think about that. Barely a teenager, yet already a frequent face in juvenile detention. Most kids at that age are worried about homework or baseball tryouts, while Tyson was caught up in a cycle of crime and survival. It could have easily ended in tragedy, another lost soul swallowed by the streets of New York. But fate stepped in. Tyson was sent to a reform school in upstate New York, and that's where he met Bobby Stewart, a counselor who happened to be a former boxer. Stewart noticed Tyson's raw strength and introduced him to the legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. And here's where the story turns from bleak to inspiring. Cus D'Amato didn't just teach Tyson how to fight, he gave him discipline, purpose, and most importantly, belief. Cus saw in Mike a future world champion, even when the rest of society saw only a troubled kid destined for jail. Under Cus's guidance, Tyson transformed from a street brawler into a finely tuned machine. The peekaboo defensive style, the intense conditioning, the mental toughness, all of it was drilled into Tyson by a man who became more of a father figure than anyone else in his life. The relationship between Tyson and Cus is legendary in boxing lore. Cus would sit Tyson down and tell him, "You're going to be the youngest heavyweight champion in the world." Imagine being a poor, lost teenager and hearing that kind of faith from someone. It lit a fire inside Tyson that never went out. Sadly, Cus passed away in 1985, just a year before Tyson won the title. Tyson has often said that losing Cus was like losing a part of himself, but he carried that promise, that prophecy, into the ring, fulfilling the dream Cus had planted in him years earlier. Mike Tyson's childhood wasn't just a backdrop, it was the crucible that forged him. From pigeons on rooftops to muggings in dark alleys, from juvenile detention to the boxing gym, every step shaped the man who would one day terrify champions. It's a story that feels more Hollywood than reality, yet it was all too real. And it shows that even from the darkest beginnings, greatness can emerge. Number 8. The Knockout King. If there is one image of Mike Tyson that will forever live in the minds of boxing fans, it's him standing over an opponent lying flat on the canvas, the referee waving his arms and the crowd either gasping in shock or roaring in disbelief. Tyson wasn't just a winner. He was a destroyer. The numbers prove it. 44 of his 50 wins came by knockout. That means nearly 9 out of every 10 opponents who stepped into the ring with him didn't make it to the final bell. But these weren't ordinary knockouts. Tyson had a way of finishing fights so fast that fans sometimes felt cheated. People would pay top dollar, wait weeks for a match, and then watch it end in under a minute. One of the most infamous examples was his fight against Michael Spinks in 1988. Spinks was undefeated, a former light heavyweight champion who had moved up to heavyweight, and many thought he had the skill to frustrate Tyson. Instead, the fight lasted 91 seconds. The bell rang, Tyson came forward like a predator, and before anyone could settle into their seats, Spinks was knocked unconscious. It was so shocking that the entire Atlantic City arena sat in stunned silence before erupting. The knockout aura wasn't just about raw power, it was psychological warfare. Opponents often looked beaten before the first punch was even thrown. Tyson's walk to the ring was part of the intimidation. No robe, no music, just a towel cut into a makeshift top with a hole in the middle, draped over his shoulders, and the sound of chains rattling. Compare that to the flashy, colorful entrances of other fighters. Tyson's stripped-down look screamed, "I'm here to hurt you. Nothing else matters." And when the bell rang, he exploded like a coiled spring. His speed was terrifying. Heavyweights weren't supposed to move like that. Most big men threw slow, looping punches, but Tyson was like a middleweight trapped in a heavyweight's body. He'd slip inside punches, ducking and weaving, then unleash combinations that left opponents dazed. Left hook to the body, uppercut to the chin, done. The effect was so profound that his fights became global spectacles. Pay-per-view sales skyrocketed, casinos sold out instantly, and everyone wanted a piece of the Tyson show, even if it lasted less than a round. Americans who weren't even boxing fans tuned in, curious to see the man who could knock out world-class fighters before you even finished a commercial break. His reputation as the knockout king extended beyond boxing. In pop culture, Tyson became the ultimate symbol of brute force. Movies, rap songs, even cartoons referenced his ability to drop someone with a single punch. Video games like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out turned him into a larger-than-life boss character, a nearly unbeatable final challenge. But the scary part, Tyson wasn't just powerful, he was precise. Trainers often pointed out that his knockouts weren't wild swings. They were surgical, calculated shots. Tyson studied opponents, waited for the smallest mistake, and punished it instantly. That's what made him more terrifying than just a slugger. He was a tactician wrapped inside a whirlwind of violence. In a sport where legends like Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, and George Foreman had already made names as knockout artists, Tyson's run in the 1980s elevated him into a whole new category. He didn't just end fights, he obliterated careers. Some opponents never looked the same after sharing the ring with him. The fear factor lingered long after the knockout. So when people say, Iron Mike, it isn't just a nickname, it's a warning label. He was the embodiment of a knockout, living proof that one punch could change everything. Number 7. His love for pigeons. Now let S take a sharp turn from violence and chaos to something surprisingly tender. Mike Tyson, S. love for pigeons. Yes, the same man who terrified grown men in the ring has been a lifelong lover of gentle, cooing birds. It might sound almost unbelievable, but Tyson A.'s connection to pigeons is one of the most humanizing and touching parts of his story. Growing up in Brooklyn, pigeons were everywhere, and young Mike developed a fascination with them. For a kid surrounded by violence and instability, pigeons represented peace and escape. While other boys were hanging out on the corners or causing trouble, Mike would spend hours on rooftops tending to his flock. He said many times that pigeons were his first love. There's a famous story about how his fighting instinct was first unleashed. As a child, a neighborhood bully killed one of Mike's pigeons right in front of him. That act sent Tyson into a rage, and he fought back with such ferocity that people realized this kid wasn't ordinary. In a strange way, the pigeons were the spark that lit the fire of Iron Mike's boxing career. Even after achieving fame and fortune, Tyson never abandoned his feathered friends. He has owned thousands of pigeons over the years and has even participated in pigeon racing. Yes, pigeon racing, a sport where birds are released hundreds of miles away and race back home to their lofts. Tyson once starred in a reality TV show called Taking on Tyson, which focused entirely on his life as a pigeon enthusiast. For Tyson, pigeons are more than a hobby, they're therapy. In interviews, he said that caring for the birds gives him peace of mind and keeps him grounded. When life's chaos, whether legal troubles, financial crises, or personal demons, spiraled out of control, the pigeons were always there, waiting for him. He once said, "The first thing I ever loved in my life was a pigeon." It might seem like a small detail, but it speaks volumes about Tyson's character. Behind the scowls, tattoos, and highlight reel knockouts is a man who still finds comfort in a simple, pure passion. It shows a side of him that rarely makes headlines, the kid from Brooklyn who just wanted to raise pigeons in peace. And if you think Tyson's opponents feared him in the ring, wait until you hear him talk about people hurting his pigeons. He's admitted he would fight anyone, anywhere, if they harmed his birds. In his mind, pigeons symbolize loyalty, innocence, and love. And for someone who grew up with very little of those things, they became his anchor. This softer side of Tyson is what makes his story so compelling. He's not just the knockout king, not just the youngest heavyweight champion. He's also the man who might spend his mornings feeding and cleaning up after a group of pigeons before heading out to train like a beast. It's a strange contrast, but it's exactly what makes him unforgettable. Number 6. The Bite. Heard around the world. When people think of Mike Tyson, one moment often overshadows his entire career, the infamous ear bite. It wasn't just a bizarre incident, it became one of the most shocking moments in sports history, the kind of event that people still bring up decades later. It all happened on June 28, 1997, during Tyson's rematch with Evander Holyfield. The two had already faced off once the year before, a fight in which Holyfield shocked the world by beating Tyson by TKO in the 11th round. For Tyson, who had built his reputation on invincibility, that loss was humiliating. The rematch was billed as redemption, and the world tuned in with anticipation. The fight began like any other, but quickly spiraled into chaos. Holyfield, known for his rough and tough style, was using headbutts to close distance. Tyson complained to the referee, but no action was taken. Frustrated and desperate, Tyson resorted to something that no one in their wildest imagination expected. He leaned in and bit Holyfield's ear. Not once, but twice. The second time, he ripped off a piece of cartilage and spat it onto the canvas. The crowd erupted in disbelief. Commentators screamed in shock. Millions of viewers at home rubbed their eyes, wondering if they'd really just witnessed a heavyweight champion literally biting his opponent's ear in the middle of a fight. The referee stopped the match, disqualified Tyson, and chaos filled the MGM Grand Garden Arena. This incident became front-page news across the globe. Newspapers didn't just cover it as a sports story, it was cultural, almost symbolic of Tyson's downfall. Late-night comedians made jokes, cartoons mocked it, and the phrase, "the bite fight," entered the lexicon. But beyond the memes and headlines, the bite revealed something deeper about Tyson. It showed how the same fire that made him an unstoppable champion could also consume him when things didn't go his way. His rage, his inability to control frustration, and his sense of betrayal by referees and the boxing establishment, all of it boiled over in that horrifying act. Tyson later admitted he was wrong, even apologizing publicly to Holyfield. Over time, the two men reconciled, even appearing together in commercials years later, laughing about the incident. But the scar, both literal and symbolic, remains. The ear bite didn't just stain Tyson's career, it highlighted the unpredictable, almost tragic duality of his character. On one hand, a disciplined athlete who could devastate opponents with skill. On the other, a man so volatile that he could implode in front of the entire world. The moment ensured that Mike Tyson would never be just another boxer. He became a legend, for better and for worse. Number 5. From bankruptcy to reinvention. For much of his early career, Tyson seemed unstoppable not only in the ring but also financially. He earned hundreds of millions of dollars, making him one of the highest-paid athletes in history. Yet by 2003, the unthinkable happened. Mike Tyson declared bankruptcy. Despite earning an estimated $400 million, he was reportedly $23 million in debt. How does something like that happen? The answer is a mix of extravagance, poor financial management, legal troubles, and the wrong people in his corner. Tyson was infamous for his lavish spending. He bought mansions, luxury cars, jewelry, and even a collection of exotic pets, including Bengal tigers, which became part of his mystique. There are stories of him handing out wads of cash to strangers, buying cars for friends on a whim, or spending millions on parties and gifts. But behind the headlines of wild spending was a darker reality. Tyson's legal battles, including his prison sentence in the 1990s, drained enormous amounts of money. On top of that, questionable contracts and shady business dealings by those managing him siphoned away his fortune. By the early 2000s, the man once known as the baddest man on the planet was struggling to pay the bills. And yet, here's where Tyson's story takes a fascinating turn. Unlike many athletes who fade into obscurity after financial collapse, Tyson reinvented himself. He embraced his larger-than-life persona and leaned into new opportunities. Hollywood welcomed him, with cameo roles in movies like The Hangover that turned him into a pop culture icon for a new generation. Fans who weren't even alive during his boxing peak suddenly knew Mike Tyson as the hilarious, unpredictable guy singing "In the Air Tonight" in a comedy film. Tyson also found success in unexpected industries. He launched a one-man show, Mike Tyson, Undisputed Truth, where he openly discussed his chaotic life with raw honesty and humor. The show toured internationally and was even directed by Spike Lee. It was part therapy, part entertainment, and it allowed Tyson to rewrite his narrative on his own terms. Then came the cannabis industry. Tyson became an outspoken advocate for marijuana, opening Tyson Ranch, a cannabis company in California. He claimed the business not only helped his financial recovery but also gave him peace and healing from years of mental and physical battles. Reports suggest the company has been worth millions, proving that Tyson once again knew how to turn chaos into opportunity. His bankruptcy and reinvention highlight the resilience of Tyson's character. While he made catastrophic mistakes, he refused to stay down. Just like in the ring, when knocked down, he got back up. His ability to move from disgrace to reinvention, from broke to building new wealth, is part of what makes his life story so captivating. In a way, Tyson's bankruptcy humanized him. Fans saw that even the richest, toughest man on earth could fall victim to excess and poor choices. But they also saw that it was possible to rise again, to rebuild and adapt. His journey from bankruptcy to reinvention is as much a lesson in perseverance as it is in financial caution. Marker 4. A prison sentence that changed everything. By the early 1990s, Mike Tyson was at the peak of fame and fortune. He was not only the most feared fighter in the world, but also one of the most recognized figures on the planet. Yet in 1992, everything came crashing down when Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison. For a man who had been virtually untouchable in the ring, this was the knockout blow that no one saw coming. The conviction sent shockwaves across the nation. Tyson was only 25 years old, still in his prime, and suddenly found himself behind bars in Indiana. To many, the news seemed surreal. The world's heavyweight champion trading his gloves for a prison jumpsuit. The fall from grace was staggering, and his reputation was shredded overnight. Prison, however, revealed another side of Tyson. While most expected him to spiral deeper into chaos, he surprised people by immersing himself in reading, self-reflection, and even religion. He read extensively on philosophy, history, and spirituality. He studied the works of Mao, Che Guevara, and various Islamic scholars. Tyson converted to Islam during this time, adopting the name Malik Abdul Aziz, though the world still knew him as Mike Tyson. Prison wasn't easy. Tyson faced hostility from both guards and fellow inmates, many of whom wanted to test the so-called baddest man on the planet. But Tyson also showed discipline, training every day, keeping himself sharp physically even while confined. He once said that prison was the best thing that ever happened to him because it forced him to stop and evaluate his life. After serving 3 years, Tyson was released in 1995. His return to boxing was one of the most anticipated comebacks in sports history. The world wanted to see if Iron Mike still had it. He quickly proved he did, regaining the WBC and WBA heavyweight titles within months. His release and comeback drew massive pay-per-view numbers, with fans curious whether Tyson was still the unstoppable force they remembered. But the prison years left scars. Public opinion was divided. Some saw Tyson as a fallen hero who deserved a second chance. Others viewed him as a disgrace who should never have returned to the spotlight. Regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that his prison sentence changed the trajectory of his life and career forever. The conviction and time served remain one of the most controversial chapters in sports history. It wasn't just about boxing anymore. Tyson had become a cultural figure whose life blurred the lines between sport, celebrity, scandal, and redemption. His time behind bars was both a pause button and a reset, forcing him to confront demons that no opponent in the ring could ever match. Number 3. Cameos, cartoons, and comedy. Tyson in pop culture. If you only knew Mike Tyson from his fights, you'd think of him as a terrifying, unstoppable beast. But Tyson's legacy extends far beyond boxing. He's also a pop culture icon, appearing in movies, cartoons, commercials, and even video games. His influence stretches across generations in ways few athletes can claim. It started in the late 1980s with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, a Nintendo video game that turned him into the ultimate video boss. Millions of kids in America and beyond spent hours trying to beat Tyson's digital counterpart, often failing miserably. To this day, the game is considered one of the hardest of its era, and Tyson's pixelated smirk remains iconic. But it wasn't just video games. Tyson made his way into Hollywood, sometimes in unexpected ways. Perhaps the most famous example came in 2009 with The Hangover. In the movie, Tyson plays himself, appearing alongside Bradley Cooper and Zach Galifianakis. He sings along to Phil Collins' "In the Air Tonight," before knocking out a character with a single punch. The cameo was brief, but it was unforgettable and hilarious. Suddenly, Tyson was no longer just the scary guy from the ring. He was funny, self-aware, and willing to poke fun at his own image. A whole new generation of fans who hadn't even seen him fight fell in love with Iron Mike. He also leaned into animation. Tyson voiced himself in the Adult Swim cartoon Mike Tyson Mysteries, a parody of Scooby-Doo where he, along with a talking pigeon and other quirky characters, solved absurd mysteries. The show was bizarre, funny, and surprisingly popular. It showed that Tyson had embraced his eccentric personality, turning it into entertainment. Commercials also embraced Tyson. From Pepsi ads to goofy TV spots, he became a go-to figure for campaigns that wanted humor, nostalgia, and a little bit of danger. His face was instantly recognizable, and his unpredictable personality made him a marketing goldmine. And let's not forget stand-up stages. Tyson launched Undisputed Truth, a one-man show where he walked audiences through his chaotic life with brutal honesty and comedic timing. It was directed by Spike Lee and became a hit, proving once again that Tyson could reinvent himself in unexpected ways. Pop culture loves contradictions, and Tyson embodied them all. He was the knockout king who also loved pigeons. He was the feared heavyweight who could make you laugh in a comedy film. He was a cartoon character and a cultural reference point, someone who showed up in rap lyrics, TV parodies, and internet memes. The fact that Tyson went from terrifying champion to comedic cameo is a testament to his adaptability. Few athletes in history have managed to stay relevant across decades, across mediums, and across such wildly different audiences. Mike Tyson didn't just fight in the ring. He fought his way into pop culture, and he's still there. The Tattoo, the face tattoo that shocked the world. By the early 2000s, Mike Tyson had already lived 10 lifetimes worth of drama: boxing glory, prison, bankruptcy, reinvention. But in 2003, he stunned the world again, this time outside the ring. He walked into a fight weigh-in sporting a brand new tribal tattoo inked across half his face. It instantly became one of the most famous and controversial tattoos in history. At first, people thought it was a prank. Tyson was unpredictable, sure, but who would tattoo something that bold on their face? Yet, there it was. Bold, black, tribal swirls covering the left side of his head, curling around his eye. Reporters gasped, fans argued, and late-night talk shows roasted him. Some called it ridiculous, others called it art. But one thing was certain. Everyone was talking about Mike Tyson again. The story behind the tattoo is just as wild as the tattoo itself. Tyson later admitted that he originally wanted a whole series of hearts inked onto his face. His tattoo artist, however, convinced him to go with something more warrior-like. The tribal design, in the artist's words, represented courage, strength, and fighting spirit. Tyson loved it. Over the years, the face tattoo has become a part of Tyson's identity, almost like his trademark. It symbolized rebellion, transformation, and a refusal to conform. Critics laughed at first, but the tattoo grew on people. Today, it's hard to picture Mike Tyson without it. In fact, it became so iconic that Warner Brothers got into legal trouble when The Hangover Part 2 used a similar tattoo design on actor Ed Helms' character. The original artist sued, proving just how culturally significant Tyson's ink had become. But beyond lawsuits and jokes, the tattoo says something deeper about Tyson's character. It represents the fearlessness to live on his own terms, regardless of public opinion. Just as he fought in the ring without apology, he wore his tattoo without shame. It became a permanent reminder that Tyson was, and always would be, larger than life. And here's the kicker. Tyson himself has said he has no regrets. To him, the tattoo isn't just an image on his skin. It's a reflection of his journey. Painful, bold, misunderstood, but undeniably his. Year 1. Redemption and Legacy. At the end of the day, when you peel back the scandals, the chaos, the knockouts, and the controversies, Mike Tyson's greatest fact is this: he is a story of redemption. Few athletes or even celebrities have crashed so hard and risen again in such a dramatic way. In the 1980s, he was a god in the ring, the youngest heavyweight champion in history. In the 1990s, he was disgraced, imprisoned, and ridiculed. By the 2000s, he was broke, mocked, and seemingly finished. But somehow, against all odds, Tyson rebuilt himself. He turned into a symbol of survival, a man who owned his past and used it to connect with people rather than run from it. He found peace in unlikely places, through pigeons, through family, through cannabis, through comedy. He became a husband and father, softening his once terrifying image. He embraced therapy and admitted to his struggles with mental health, opening up conversations that many athletes avoided. Instead of being remembered only for the ear bite or the chaos, he reframed himself as someone who had fallen and gotten back up, a lesson straight out of boxing itself. Today, Tyson is both respected and beloved in ways no one could have predicted 20 years ago. Younger fans know him from The Hangover, podcasts, and viral clips. Older fans still remember the devastating knockouts and the glory days of heavyweight boxing. He's both myth and man, tragedy and triumph rolled into one. The legacy of Mike Tyson is complicated, yes, but that's what makes it unforgettable. He wasn't perfect, and he never pretended to be. He was human, messy, flawed, brilliant, terrifying, hilarious, vulnerable. In short, he was real, and that's why his story still resonates. Mike Tyson A's life proves that greatness isn't T about never falling. It's about always getting back up. From the poorest neighborhoods of Brooklyn to the richest casinos of Las Vegas, from prison cells to Hollywood movie sets, Tyson has lived a life more extreme than fiction. And through it all, he's shown us that redemption is possible, even for those who seem beyond saving. So, there you have it. The top 10 facts about Mike Tyson, the man who went from troubled kid to global icon, from champion to prisoner to legend once more. His journey is brutal, bizarre, and inspiring all at once, a reminder that life's hardest punches don't come in the ring. They come outside of it. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next incredible countdown. Drop a comment below and let us know which Tyson moment shocked you the most, or if you ever tried beating him on Punch-Out and failed miserably like the rest of us. And don't forget to ring that bell for updates, because just like Tyson in his prime, you never know what's coming next.